But another potential fuel source, one that seems to come right out of science fiction, has already been created in laboratories. It's called antimatter, and it's the opposite of all that we know.
For example, think of the world on the other side of the looking glass. Just like in Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland, we physicists have wondered, is there another universe on the other end of the looking glass? A parity-reversed universe where left becomes right, right becomes left. In an anti-universe, charges are reversed. So positive charges become negative, negative charges become positive, and when they meet, they create a burst of energy. So if this universe on the other side of the looking glass were made out of antimatter, and I were to touch this other universe, I would destroy most of the New York City metropolitan area in a burst of energy. So the conversion of antimatter and matter to energy is 100% efficient. It is the ultimate engine. But there is a catch. There's always a catch. Even though we can create anti-atoms in the laboratory, the cost is stupendous. It would bankrupt the United States of America to create a teaspoon of antimatter. However, it would only take a few grams of antimatter to take us to Mars, and perhaps several teaspoons of antimatter to take us to the nearby stars.
But for us to ever visit a distant star or another galaxy, we need something stranger than even Alice could ever dream of, peering through her looking glass. Scientists continue the quest for a propulsion method to carry us ever deeper into space. But even achieving light speed won't allow us to get very far.
Light's fast, but the universe is huge. So even if we could ride on a beam of light, if we wanted to cross the galaxy, the way they do in all the science fiction programs, it would take 100,000 years to do it.
And even at light speed, traveling to the nearest galaxy would take several million years. And if light speed is the ultimate speed limit of the universe, it seems we're doomed to confinement in our galactic neighborhood.
What we're desperate for is some new understanding of the fabric of space-time that will allow us to somehow warp it, distort it, so that you can take shortcuts. And of course, that's what they do in Star Trek when they turn on their warp drives. They want to get from one side of the galaxy to the other. All they do is invoke the warp drive that warps the fabric of space, and then they take a little shortcut right there. They cheat, basically.
Everybody knows Einstein's famous dictum, you cannot go faster than the speed of light. However, there's a footnote to it. You see, Einstein left open the possibility that you can fold the fabric of space and time itself so that you effectively take a shortcut through the universe. Think of a carpet. If you want to go across the carpet, that's the old-fashioned way. You can also get a lasso a table on the other side of the carpet, and then drag the table toward you so that you collapse the space in front of you. In a nutshell, Einstein says the bigger the mass, the bigger the bending of space and time. If you can concentrate enormous amounts of energy at a single point, comparable to that of a black hole or a huge gigantic star, you are literally warping the fabric of space and time. You simply hop across to the nearby stars. So in other words, you did not really go to the stars. The stars came to you because you are compressing the space in front of you.
The massive amount of energy or mass needed to create such a warped curvature of space seems beyond comprehension and perhaps beyond human capability. There may be an alternative. Physicist John Brandenburg is developing a theory in which a starship of the future could achieve faster-than-light travel, not by manipulating a vast area of the universe, but rather by manipulating only the area around the starship. The trick is to have a starship imitate a curious particle that so far only exists in theory. It's called a tachyon.
It's a particle with a different twist. Light itself always moves at the same speed. Tachyons, on the other hand, can go infinitely fast. They just can't go slower than the speed of light. They look at the speed of light as a lower speed limit that they cannot violate.
If they do exist, tachyons can outrun the speed of light because they have what physicists recognize as imaginary mass. An imaginary value can be visualized in the spin of a struck tennis ball. Its spin can cause it to bend and move in a manner that an observer might not expect to see from its initial point of contact. In the same way, a tachyon is unseen by the universe and can break its speed limits. Brandenburg proposes altering the space-time surrounding a starship with a powerful electromagnetic field so that the ship moves through space like a tachyon. It would operate like a stealth aircraft, invisible to radar, unseen by radar operators.
So if one can achieve this control of the space-time around this ship, one can essentially make it an imaginary object. In a technical way, that means it's moving faster than light. You're basically disconnecting yourself from the rest of the cosmos.
It could grant the traveler the ability to go anywhere in the universe in the blink of an eye, as if a multitude of doorways suddenly appeared.
A doorway you step into and then you step out somewhere down the hall so fast that it didn't seem like you had time to move anyplace. That's an imaginary connection in space-time. And you've changed yourself, not space-time.
No one may know how fast or even where such a space vessel could travel.
Which door to go into, which door to come out of. That's the trick.
But voyaging through the Hall of the Universe isn't possible without first overcoming one of its fundamental forces, the one that shackles us to our home planet.
Getting away from the Earth's gravitational field. That's the first thing that we have to do.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6.
For an object to break away from Earth's gravitational pull,
2, 1. We have ignition and liftoff of NASA's new
it must achieve a velocity of 17,500 miles per hour. That's fast enough to streak from New York to Los Angeles in about 8 minutes.
There's no other way to do it, at least that we have now, other than brute force.
While a theoretical space elevator can climb away from Earth's gravitational pull, a rocket must outrun it with the brute force provided by the explosive chemical reaction of burning fuel.
Chemical power is what drives today's rocket engine. Every time you burn something, that's chemical power. Every time a rocket engine ignites, that's chemical power. Every time you start your engine in your car, you're using the chemical energy stored in the gasoline.
The fuel alone can burden a spacebound craft with up to 90% of its total weight.
If you're carrying all the fuel you'll ever need, then most of the effort of the first ignited fuel is to lift the unburnt fuel into orbit. It'd be like trying to drive from New York City to Los Angeles on one tank of gas. Well, you would need a tanker truck behind you. And most of the energy to accelerate the tanker truck is going in to just move the fuel that's in the tanker truck.
The space shuttle, its rockets, and the fuel they're carrying weigh a staggering 4 million pounds. And nothing short of a bone-rattling eruption could push it up and away from Earth.
Well, Brent, looks like your long wait is over. We wish you all the best luck in the world. Godspeed, and we'll see you back here in about 2 weeks.
A journey into space today means that space travelers must ride a controlled detonation into the sky.
Whatever the vehicle weighs, we have to generate about 1.5 to 2 times that thrust in order to get it off the surface of the Earth.
To get the space shuttle up to speed demands 7 million pounds of thrust. To put that into perspective,
if you can imagine me holding a 1-pound ball in my hand, if I'm holding it here and I'm holding it steady, I am exerting a pound of thrust on that ball. So if I lower it down, I'm clearly not exerting a 1 pound. If I pick it up, I'm exerting more than a pound. So you have to have a little more thrust than you do the weight, obviously, or you won't go anywhere.
How a rocket moves can be illustrated with a blown-up balloon.
This works almost like an engine nozzle. Now I can hold it in place, and you can control it. You can let it go. And what we do is we try to eject as much mass through that throat as we can. And as it expands out, the back end, that expansion or that pressure pushing that way pushes the vehicle this way.
When today's astronauts climb aboard for their journeys on the space shuttle, they're hitching to giant containers housing that necessary mass. Millions of pounds of highly combustible hydrogen and oxygen wait to be ejected. It only takes a spark.
The main engine starts 6 seconds before takeoff. The whole shuttle shakes. It feels like it wants to just rip itself out of the launch pad.
Off of Space Shuttle Endeavour, expanding the International
It shudders,
Space Station.
and you think, oh my gosh, that's an awful lot of force, about 1.5 million pounds of thrust. It's kind of surreal. It's like, this can't really be happening. It's something you've been wanting to do for years and years, and it's really happening. It's like riding a man-made earthquake. You've spent several million pounds worth of fuel to get to the first 2 minutes of flight, and then the solid rocket boosters come off. And that's like a train wreck when those things come off. It almost feels like you're just accelerating faster and faster and faster as you burn all the fuel out of the big main tank. So for the next 6 minutes, you're accelerating up to a point where you're finally feeling about 3 Gs, 3 times the force of gravity of acceleration. And so now it almost feels like there's a big gorilla sitting on your chest.
A drag racer who accelerates from 0 to 100 miles per hour in 2 seconds will feel G-forces similar to those experienced by astronauts.
As the vehicle keeps accelerating and you're watching the speed tick by in thousands of feet per second until you get to 25 times the speed of sound. Then there's a cutoff, and then everything's floating. And now you're in space. So space isn't very far away. It only takes about 8 minutes and 30 seconds to get there.
The next model for venturing into the great beyond and reaching new worlds will begin first with a visit to an old friend. Although not quite yet a space elevator, NASA's mission to return to the moon builds on the idea of Earth orbit as a base for farther voyages. NASA's Constellation program, a successor to the legendary Apollo program, aims to plant boots on the moon by 2020. 2 separate rockets form the foundation of the plan. The unmanned Ares 5 rocket, towering taller than a football field standing on its end, will carry the lunar lander, supplies, and an Earth departure rocket into orbit, where it will wait for the astronauts. The Ares 1 rocket will deliver the crew to orbit aboard a capsule. It will then rendezvous with the Earth departure rocket and blast to the moon.
We can take more supplies, more commodities to the moon. That's what this tandem system provides for us. Instead of Apollo, which only allowed us to go for 1 or 2 days at a time and then come back.
Will we ever find a way to surpass the bold achievements of the Apollo program? Will we ever cross the